Greetings. Good day, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hi, Ethan. Tarot by Lupo, LMB. Greetings. Lovely to see you. Wow. Hi, Susan. Nice to see you.
Hello, friends.
Yeah. So, how's everybody's week been? Are we all riding the waves, the big, beautiful waves, surfing, learning to be incredible surfers? Hi, Angela.
Hi, Angela.
Welcome. Welcome. Looks like we have some questions about Mark Carney's mother's maiden name. Let's check this
Rock it out here.
Mark Carney's mother's maiden name is Kemper. Margaret Trudeau married a Kemper. Is there a connection? Well, that's an interesting starting point to get us
opened up and
rocking into the
flow.
week. We were talking about all these airline accidents this morning, so I feel like that wants to come up as a question at some point. If it doesn't get brought up, we're gonna dive into that. But let's start with this. Let's start with the first question on the roster today.
Is there a Kemper connection?
And
hello, Mystic Mimi. Welcome. Thank you. Yeah.
We are, this is kind of looking at, well, to me, it's a lot about weaving the cabal connections. It's about weaving, how the international political arenas have been so deeply enmeshed for a really long time. And all these conversations about Canada being the 51st state, and it just feels like what's happening is we're having revelations where we start to see more and more of the weaves. I'll let you go ahead and divide that into three, Crystal. And the beautiful thing about that is that it's becoming part of the mainstream awareness. It's coming, so many of these pieces of information and the deeper weaves are coming into the mainstream lexicon and awareness. And I think the benefit being that if people see how these different, not only elite families and royal families, I think a lot of people are aware of that, but if they see political interweaves that go across borders and across nations and so on, they can better understand how we could have scenarios where massive global plans and agendas are being enacted by what appears to be individual nation states. So that to me is the benefit of getting a lot of this up and out in the open. So let's just see the answer to your question, LMB.
What should we do? 3 or?
Sure, let's do 3. And we're basically asking, is there a connection? Yeah. Just gonna go like that. There we go. Love it. Is there a connection? So we have 4 of Pentacles in the potential past. And when we see that, so 3 cards, I'm saying past, or what we're perceiving as the past narrative around this, the present, and the potential future. 4 of Pentacles, what do we know about that? It's about sort of everything being locked down, right? You get that feeling, Crystal? It's like there's been a lot of control. 4s are about control and stabilizing, but also sort of like security and everything being
foundational building, right? So,
but it's also a lot about holding the wealth, right? You see how this character is literally holding on to the money and keeping it in the hands of the few, right? That's like, there's not a lot of generosity with the 4 of Pentacles. It's almost like a miserly energy. So I would say there has been some political weaving together of these family lines that has been more about controlling the resources. It's again, I'm getting like within these elite circles, both politically and I'm hearing religiously, and also in the aristocracy, we've got even maybe another version of all these things being woven together.
I get something with this too, again, about like design or bloodlines kind of thing.
Wow.
Like where, this is very sort of the beginning or like coming into creation of designer bloodlines and kind of having that line that gets followed. So I could kind of see that being a yes to if there's a connection there, because that's like even with the dove holding the cross here, like something about that being like medical almost. And I've gotten this feeling about lines with this card before too. So I feel like that could be yes to there being a connection, and it even like spanning cross countries or yeah.
And about 300 years. So
Mhm.
this particular weave, it probably goes back quite far, and it goes even into, I agree with Crystal, it's I think it's off the North American continent, really. We're looking at
Mhm.
other players in this scene.
I also see kind of like 4 families almost, like we've got the 4 here, and then I see like kind of almost 4 different streams, the 4 connections, the 4 directions in that. This little, I'm really drawn to this little wafer here. So it seems almost like sort of 2 families coming together to create like the holy kind of designer bloodline.
Yeah, and I mean, this is quite negative, kind of, let's just call it tampering on a level of like, we're not seeing super nefarious cards here.
Mm-mm.
So again,
Mm-mm.
I get there's a great degree of the hubris of, I think it has at its origin point, there was some, I don't want to say like positive. I think that there was some aspect of it had a good intention.
Yeah.
But it was good for them, not for everyone, right? It was good for them. And this idea that they're in their own elite class and they get all the best things. And so it feels like there is a sense that they're doing the right thing. And interestingly, even that on some level, this is all being designed by a more purposeful sort of higher consciousness, which is our collective higher consciousness. It's often really hard to make sense of that, because when we see so much really horrible suffering and violence against people, we're like, how could this even remotely be good for us? Like, how is this even ever going to lead us in a good direction? And yet, I really encourage you to see beyond the odds, that as we go through so many of these challenges, we are transmuting that darkness. And so, yeah, it's not as black and white as that they are the bad guys and we are the good guys. I feel like they've just had a lot more power to play with, this power. And they've gotten quite creative, but it's empty, right? It's almost like when I look at that hand, you can read this card so many different ways. And according to this question, I really get that sleight of hand here. There's something about like, behind like the curtain of Oz or something, right? It's like there's some sort of magical thinking going on here. So the answer is basically yes. I think there is a connection. I do think that it goes back quite a long ways. And I do think that looking into these things will start to show us the weaves. And I actually get on some level, what do you feel about this, Crystal? But I feel like there may have been some agenda with this to bring peace between two warring sides.
Yeah, I could see that, definitely. I mean, almost being sort of like pushed into this place,
Mm,
um, out of,
like a stalemate or something.
yeah, being pushed into this place and bringing it into like the bigger picture, the grander design kind of thing. And I mean, it's also like Mom said, continuing to get curious about our own bloodlines and our always honoring the power of ancestry and where we come from, where other people come from, and somewhere along the way, how many of us are all connected, right? So, always an
Mhm.
interesting consideration here.
Great. Thanks, Crystal. And interesting. We just never know where we're going to go with these Q&As, right?
Before we go too far,
Yes.
I just wanted to point out the banner at the bottom. We still have, I still have a sale that's happening until March 25th, where you receive 25% off all of my sessions. So readings, coaching, hour-long, half hours. And the link to that is in the write-up at the bottom. So also, I wanted to remind you all that I am hosting my first solo live coming up next Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, where I'm going to have it be a little different, where you have the option to come and get a little more personal one-on-one with me and potentially bring in some more personal to you live questions if you're interested in doing that. I'm happy to answer any questions that come through, but if normally we try to keep it more worldly based, and I'd be interested in answering some more personal questions as well. So I'm designing my own thumbnail. I'm going to be putting that up, and I'm super excited to have you all join me if you can make it. And just wanted to point that out before we get going too far.
That is so lovely, Crystal.
Yeah.
And this gives you an opportunity to see where Crystal shines so amazingly is in that interpersonal one-on-one with her combination of coaching and counseling skills that, like I said last week, she's been doing this since she was like, since she could talk. She's been that person. She's a real natural at it. And I think, yeah, it would be really interesting for you to see what she does with your questions and how she's able to give such phenomenal perspective, bringing in the spiritual, the personal. So I wish that I was here I might try to tune in from where I am. I'm away because a dear friend of mine is having a surgery, and I'm going to stay with her for a couple of days when she gets home from the hospital. So it's a support thing that I'm doing. So that's why I'm away. Let's go to our next question.
Well,
Suzanne?
we did. I would like to look at the planes thing. We did mention that, and I feel like let's honor our needs there and bring our own question in for a moment, and then we'll continue on because we've got some other great questions that are popping up. But yeah, just noticing, over these past few weeks, months, that there's been more and more activity with strange plane accidents, crashes, and what is this all about here?
I mean, part of me is aware that what I see in the mainstream news is that this tendency now to make every little thing headline news, right? Like, I mean, we have massive, terrible accidents on our highways every hour. Right? And those are not all hitting headline news. So, there's the question, is it just this extreme focus on these events that do happen? Or are we, and if that's the case, is it an attempt to sort of force us into not traveling by airplane anymore, to discourage us from traveling? Or is this actually some kind of phenomena, or is it a combo? So let's do a focused answer.
Yes.
Spread for this, Crystal.
Oh, there's our 3. Oh gosh.
I'm just gonna get this there.
Yeah, we had a really good adjust the camera a little bit more too, and then we don't have to go so sideways.
There we go.
Just technicalities here, darlings. Okay, let's see here.
Interesting.
Okay.
Just let's squeeze these guys
Yeah,
together.
I always just let me get them down because they slide all over the place, and sometimes it's easier for me to just put them down.
You get to listen to us nattering away here. I have to, I guess, disclaimer is that Crystal and I both have fire moons. In fact, my other daughter has a fire moon too. We have a trinity of fire moons. I'm an Aries moon, Crystal is a Sag moon, and my other daughter is a Leo moon. So it's so funny being around us. People are like, if you guys mad at each other, what's going on? Because we just sort of banter and bicker away. And it's just the fiery energy that clears. We're like, we must be channeling into some of our Italian roots or something, even though that's a small fraction of our ancestry. And I know that that is a gross generalization, but it's just fun in a way to recognize that this is our nature. So please don't be freaked out that we kind of poke at each other, because we get over it pretty fast most of the time.
Okie dokie. So, okay. So what we're asking about, since we don't have a question up on the banner written up there, if you're just tuning in, is that we're asking about what is going on with all of these flight disturbances, crashes, and just sort of kind of chaos in the air there. So what do you see, Mama?
Well, it's interesting that those same two cards came in. You noticed that? Right? And you saw shuffling like the same two cards. So to me, there is something, I feel like there is something like going on behind the scenes, this hermit, like something about creating a reason to sort of go in and change things around airline traffic.
Yeah.
And creating sort of like enough of a disturbance. And it feels like it's about us. You know, I've been saying this for a few years. There's something about us getting to a place where we choose travel. Like, I remember during the pandemic, when people were really anxious about, oh my gosh, when are we going to be able to travel again? And I was doing readings, back in 2020 about this. And I was we're going to look at travel differently. We're going to be looking at why we're traveling. Interesting. Ethan says that double lovers, the lovers themselves, and the Two of Cups. Yeah, we're going to be looking at our reasons for traveling. So it's almost like if you needed to sort of put a cap on mass consumerism, you would do something that would illustrate how it's not sustainable and it's not functional.
Yeah.
And similarly, if you need to put a cap or redirect the energy around how people fly and why, and like, I feel like it's in a way a kind of a privilege. And I don't mean that it's for the elite few. I mean, I feel like it's a privilege that everyone should have the opportunity to experience, but that we look at our habit patterns around it, right? We look at, and I'm not just talking about global warming stuff and all of that. I'm talking about, like, is it really serving us, the way we travel and the way we use airline travel? And that we're going to be looking at new ways of traveling as well. And we're not going to be able to kind of move into those new ways if we're still it's like we're creatures of habit, right?
Yeah.
So I almost feel like this whole airline thing.
This being sort of stuck. We're really learning how to work together to come up with new solutions, new possibilities, make choices around, what is the essential to fly for, and then what are the other ways that we can get places, and to
Mhm.
sort of like, the more that we put our energy and our resources into these other avenues, the more sort of accessible these other avenues become, right? And
Mhm.
so, like many things that are happening to us right now, this is actually gifts that are strengthening us to look in other directions, to think of other possibilities, to kind of allow things like air travel to be a little bit, kind of go underground a little bit, and um, to see that there is, some big sort of almost underground dealings and stuff that happen there. That is like, maybe it is good to kind of put a cap on it a bit,
Right. I mean,
right?
I
Like,
feel like this relates a lot to changing like the whole system with airline traffic
mhm,
because we know, for example, how many of these planes have been used to, spray the chemicals and all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, overall, this is pretty good, right? So
mhm,
it's like I mean, obviously, it's not good for the people who've suffered because of these accidents.
mhm.
Um, and I get that we're not meant to just say, oh, we shouldn't travel, or to say, this is all fake. I think to find the middle point, right? The lovers are about, it's a number six. It's about choices. It's about balance, balanced choices, strength, realizing, there's something about our reasons for traveling, and that, yeah, we're just going to start to see this more as a privilege as opposed to a right. And
Yeah.
I hope that that lands for people. I know that in some ways yeah, it's hard to let go when we've grown habitually accustomed to things.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, Leo's asking, will it be safe to fly this summer? So can we just pull a couple more cards on that from the
Yeah.
top, Crystal?
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Hmm.
So again, I'm getting almost like 5 to 7 weeks where it's going to be a little bit kind of, we're going to need to strategize. Now, interestingly, I saw this again about 2 years ago. I kept seeing in people's readings when they were asking me if it was safe to fly. I kept seeing, look at what your reasons for flying are, first of all. And if that feels like a worthwhile, integral reason,
Yeah.
um, something that you've either like been preparing for a while, or it really feels like it has value for your evolution and development, that check the box, right? And then secondly, if you have any dowsing tools available to you, if you don't, you can check out my dowsing course and learn how to work with your pendulum. You can look at that, and especially around choosing different dates. And
Yeah.
then third
Yeah.
wise, my final point is that you get travel insurance,
Mhm.
and that you don't get like really panicked or discouraged if you need to change, right? This is like the five of swords and the seven of swords. It's like, be prepared to change and redirect. So if you have the travel insurance, you're not all wound up and anxious. And then ask your higher self to say, you know what, if it's going to be clear and safe, then it'll be all green lights. And if there's any reason for it not to be safe, then make it really obvious and stop that trip from happening. Does that mean you should just say, I'm never traveling? No, it just means this is a new way to strategize around how you travel. That it's just a little bit more like you're engaged in the decision, right? This is that lovers, which is about the decisions. Um, and people want the final answer, right? We want to be like, so many times when people come to me for readings, they're like, would you just tell me, is it a yes or is it no? Should I or shouldn't I? And life is not that black and white, folks, especially in these constant evolving, changing times. We need to check in on a more regular basis and be more involved in our choosing, so that we don't end up like, well, I asked the cards 3 months ago and it said yes, and now I'm getting a red flag. Don't take that personally. That's not like you didn't do something wrong. It's just things are changing. So you'll want to keep sort of on it a little more and not be discouraged by that. What do you feel, Crystal?
I feel like you said everything.
Oh, good. Okay, so let's go back up here, and where are our last? Susan had a question about this. The saying behind every powerful man is a more powerful woman. Does this refer to the deep state handlers? Are they all transgender? Wow. Okay, so kind of 3 questions there, or 2 questions. But we are back into talking about deep state families and sort of ritual / protocol. And
so how would we really word this then? So we're considering the saying, and then is the saying in reference to deep state handlers? I mean,
so what you're asking in effect,
are
Susan,
deep state handlers women?
Yeah.
And then in all actuality, are those women transgender?
Right.
Okay. So we're going to look at the first question and then maybe pull a few on the transgender in addition to it.
Yeah. And probably 3 on that question. Are they women? Are they majority women?
Okay. So I'll get you to put into that.
Thank you. Just going to divide it now. There we go.
Put it back together.
Kind of getting that one.
Yeah, nice.
There we go.
Interesting.
Yeah. Are they women? That's interesting.
They're not super feminine cards. This is sort of like a dual gender card a bit because it's a page.
Yeah. Let me just look here, because if we're looking at handlers, almost I get a feeling, because you'll see this is like a man that is moving the boat with a woman and a child on it. So I kind of get the feeling that it's actually less about one man or one woman, and more about, like, a lot of times it's like, it's interesting, we're back talking about family, and I almost get that it could be like a lot of these handlers are couples. Is kind of, do you get a feeling about that?
I feel like the thing is when you're dealing with children, say, women are going to be the natural sort of caretakers of the actually like hands-on caretakers, and then I feel like men are going to be more of the handlers of like the strategy and like the rules of engagement, and then I feel like the women are going to be more of like the nurturer of the like the whole undertaking and the caring the handling in the like the physical hands-on part of it. I feel like could be more of the women's, but it definitely feels like
it's a combined effort is what I'm getting. And so are they transgender?
Well, let's pull the few on that.
Cards on that.
Interesting.
Whoa.
Oof. Okay.
Whoa. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So
those are some big cards on that.
Move that sun up just a little bit more. So yeah. It could very well be that I think there's a lot of this. I also think that this, when we get going too far into that rabbit hole of everybody is switched. Like I know Janine has really gone in that direction a lot. And I think what she's getting is actually that it's widespread, this practice. I'm not sure I'm in agreement that it is as completely blanketed across all of these. I think that it has happened frequently, but maybe not that frequently. And I think that the intel that suggests it's going on like everywhere all the time, I think is kind of in a way pulling us away from seeing something else. So like this experimentation has been going on for a really long time. And I think Crystal's onto it in a way. It's not just about like the question of transgender is actually only one of a whole part of questions around like designer genetics and stuff like that. Like I think it's actually quite a lot more in depth than just transgender. Do you feel that?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's actually probably more, I don't want to say spiritually necessarily, but it's like, the fact that this is like a major, like three major arcana that comes up around this, and the major arcanas point to like a deeper underground, like spiritual meaning to things. And I almost feel like if there is a transgender aspect to it, is it kind of like they work with um, like the nature of how people are coming in, and they pick these like specific beings that are really going to that have been designed for that sort of thing. And I feel like there's actually something that is, it's not just about the medical part of it all, but there's actually like more,
spiritual part.
yeah, like a deeper, more
Well,
esoteric, magical part of it, which is like, and the devil's not there, but it is the moon. So it's like they're working with some of like the deeper aspects of it. Something.
Interesting. The analogy I'm being shown is like when we work with hybridizing plants, right? And we like tamper in a way with genetics, and we do that either literally through like splicing different plants together or by selective breeding, right? Like we choose the same when we, create new breeds of dogs and stuff. It's done by, it's selective breeding choices. So I think that this has been played with in these realms. But then the guides are saying, we could just go, oh my God, that's horrific. We should just let nature take its course. But then we do that. Like we select our partners. There's a lot of selection that goes on, and as Crystal's saying, this is a very spiritual question. So it moves out of just about physical body transformation, and it goes into like processes of how we're sort of designing and directing the destiny of our evolution. So it's a very big topic. This is a very big topic.
And I think it's interesting to see, like when we talk about deep state, like if you look at this, you could really take it into this is deep state work, right? But then the fact that this comes out as like the sort of cherry on top is like there may be a brighter purpose under all of it that we're not really aware of, right? So not saying that the deep state is good in any aspect, but it's just like we're still, all of this is coming up for us to look at, for us to get curious about, for us to not lay blame or victimize ourselves, but to be like, whoa, there is some real big power here. And what is the light and the shadow of it, and what do we need to know? How do we go further into it?
Yeah, I think I would like to say about that, to reiterate that fact that we are saying, we don't want any experimentation done on humanity, on the evolution of our spiritual destiny and so on. We don't want these genetic programs and selection for spiritual purposes. And yet when we look back through all of the eons of time, again, we do that, even us as parents, right? We are trying to guide our children towards making certain choices with who they partner with and who they marry. And like, there's so many ways that we as humans are always operating on this principle of choice and selection for a desired outcome. And nothing is just random, right? So I think that we can critique the fact that these people, I think one of the major critiques about all of what the deep state does is they do it with this deep sense of secrecy. And they do it because they know that it's sort of like they want free reign, carte blanche to experiment as they want. And they know that the overall consensus collectively is not ready for that kind of stuff, right? So they just go, well, we're just going to go over here and do all this crazy stuff. But the problem with that is that then they get off so far, kind of on a detour, dead end, because they don't have the overall conscience and consensus of human evolution with them. They're trying to do this thing in isolation over here.
And that's what I was thinking about. Like, look, we've got the future outcome, the spiritual warrior, like information's coming out into light. I think there's going to be whistleblowers. And I think actually that like there's going to be these beings that are being brought in that they think they are going to have control over. And these beings are going to be the beings that bring all of this to light, that step outside of this underground narrative that's been running for so long and actually bring themselves into a higher state of empowerment to change things for the better. So who knows, right?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Thank you for your question, Suzanne. And now we are going Tarot by Lupo's question. We're going to switch gears a little bit and go into gold. And yeah, I saw the headlines about all the gold that is being shipped apparently from the UK and being shipped to the US, and because of these, the tariffs and the gold prices dropping in the UK and so on. So this is a, hot topic right now. Is there actually any physical gold at Fort Knox? You want me to give those a little fluffing
flurry?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you everyone for your questions. It's so lovely to be here with you all.
It really is.
Everyone to joining us.
It's healing and revealing, right? It's always so interesting where we go, and I think it's like a collective dream experience when we do these Q&As, because we are like somehow just the order, the supposed randomness. Look at how often these Two of Cups are showing up right now too.
Welcome, Ricky. We're glad you didn't end up missing it.
There you go, dear. You do 3 piles.
Sure. Physical gold at Fort Knox.
Yep, that was the one I was thinking.
Nice. We're on it.
We're when we say that, what we're referring to is that there's different ways that we can like pick the cards up. And which pile we're going to put on top, and we just sort of tune in every time and feel what's right for that. Oh my gosh, the Lovers again. Oh.
So I feel like yes, there is, and there's like definitely 2 locations. That Fort Knox is not the only one. I wonder though.
There's something about there's something about what's being talked about is like getting us to sort of look over here, but it's actually going over here. It's reminding me of like where we're told something. What was that story about? Oh yeah, I was watching that story about that famous diamond that ended up in the crown jewels, and how when they transferred that diamond, they actually sent it through the mail, but they did a decoy sending. and then they sent the actual diamond just in regular postal. So I'm getting this a little bit of a feeling like there's a decoy thing going on here where gold is being moved, supposedly moved somewhere, and then also that it's like shown to not be there, or there's like not as much as was said, but then it's actually somewhere else. And what we need to know about this is, we give it the value.
Yeah.
So if we are saying gold standard and we want everything gold backed, I really encourage you to say that is just a little stepping stone to much better systems down the road. That is not where we don't stop with the gold backed currencies. It's still this, I don't want to say it. It is still kind of pulling us into this a little bit of an abstraction around what is real value. Like, we give these precious minerals value. And I think that the more we hype it up and say, if we don't have gold backed currency, we're hooped. Obviously, it's better than petrodollars, but it's not the end all to be all. Like, we're moving into real currency about things that really, really have value. And everything that is kind of taken from the earth, it's not ours to begin with. So, it's like what has value is human ingenuity, human creativity, human effort, and collaborative, humans working together to create a more beautiful world. That has tremendous value.
Yeah, our hands-on skills are really, knowing what to do with information like this, even when it comes up, is like, how does that direct you in the direction of the choices that you're making about how you honor the value of who you are, what you're capable of, and the currency with which you wish to exchange, to circulate wealth.
Yeah, I'm hearing consumer currency is all about what you can consume. It's consumption based. But real value is not consumption based. It's not about like it, the real value is not in the physical gold or in even the minerals in the ground or the land that people own, which none of it we own, right? It's like, can we kind of move a little bit through this and not get so distracted? So absolutely, I'm encouraging everyone, transfer as much of your wealth into precious metals, but don't think that is your like sort of solid banked security for the next 500 years. It's like it feels like we're being asked to go for real gold, which is around like the ethics and the quality of human ingenuity and where we're headed. Yeah, over the rainbow currencies. So I mean, it sounds a little bit fantastical right now, but this is where I've been speaking about us moving in these directions for a long time. And I'm actually working on a system that is about developing a new relationship with value and the value currency experience.
It sounds fantastical. Sorry, Mama, I did not mean to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
It sounds fantastical, and yet we're fantastical beings that are continuously being sharpened and fine-tuned and heightened in our consciousness and in our awareness. And we're really, like, with this King and Queen of Swords here, we're really learning to speak to and stand in our power with what really is valuable to us, and to not be sort of led or sidetracked or distracted by the show of what they say should be valuable to us.
Mhm.
So something to contemplate there.
Okay, I'm going to go to, we've already
There
looked
was-
at one of Leo's questions. Sorry, dear. I think I'm going to go a little out of order just because I don't want to keep going over questions. I want to answer a more broad
I
range.
know, but there was one that I really
Oh.
wanted to, like I'm watching this one here, the fentanyl one. I really wanted to look at that.
Okay, so we'll look at the fentanyl lab, and then we're going to look at the social security payments.
Yeah.
U.S. Social Security people not receiving their regular checks. So we're
Yeah.
going to look at those two,
I
and
think
that'll
those
be
two are
for,
good to tie into.
yeah.
Yeah.
So let's go back to this LNB's question. Largest fentanyl lab
In
find
Falkland,
in the world.
BC. Mm-hmm.
Is the BC government part of the problem? Seems this is not widely known.
Thank you. Big stuff to bring up.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're just seeing Canada all over the place.
Aren't
like
we?
now that we, now that we are being sort of called out on the border security and all the fentanyl that's coming across the borders, it's like it's suddenly in the news, and people are like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that Canada was this major, drug chain network source." And so I think it's good that we're seeing a lot of the disclosure around these things. I think it's really valuable that it's out in the news. And is the BC government part of it? I mean, I almost feel like it's a foregone conclusion, but let's just see what we need to do with that information.
Yeah.
Like, what do we need to do about, for those of us that live in BC, Canada, and for those of you that don't know what that is, it's British Columbia, Canada, which is it's the western province.
Am I cutting?
Yeah, please. The westernmost province in Canada, and also the most woke province in Canada.
Yep.
And also the province that has the most connections with Asian, because we're right on the Pacific. We have the Asian Pacific kind of networks that have been coming through our ports here for a really long time.
Okay. Yeah.
Wow, that is such a weird card to have as an answer to this. The Three of Cups. Like, how is this?
Well,
how is this? Like, it's almost, because this is like a chaos card, and then this is a like celebration
card.
So, and then waiting.
But look at how the chaos is a gift.
Right. So
like all that's being stirred up is a gift.
So it feels like it's actually feeling to me like it's been not functioning. Like, I think it used to be a lot more. The government used to be a lot more involved, and I feel like it's been sort of removed in a way with its involvement over the last, let's just say, maybe 15, well, no, sorry, that's a 12, year, but maybe even longer, where the government hasn't been able to be as involved, but things are just kind of on a stalemate holding pattern. And now it's like
new players coming in,
and it's going to be a lot about the money that changes hands here. But I think that overall, it's almost like this is happening so that it kind of roasts people out of the
cleansing.
woodwork. Yeah. And
it's definitely going to come down to money. Yeah.
Maybe pull in a couple more cards for it, Crystal.
Yeah, it's definitely going to come down to money.
Not an easy answer the way the cards showed up here right now.
Interesting, considering UK went to war over the Falkland. Mm.
Yeah, but that's we're talking about Falkland, BC,
BC.
which is not the Falkland Islands.
Yeah.
Falkland, BC is a tiny little town. Yeah.
Healing.
Yeah. So somehow I do feel that the time that the government was involved has been not happening for a little while. So that would kind of coincide with a lot of what Janine is seeing, which is these, the puppet governments and the shadow governments and all that kind of stuff. Like I don't think that it has been involved for a while, but everything that was set up has still just kind of been operating. And now that, there's the spotlight on it, it's sort of like all the little rats are scurrying in every direction is what I'm getting. But it is going to bring some kind of, even having the conversations about this. I think people are going to be asking those questions, right? A lot more mainstream people are going to be putting the pressure on governments to like dive into this and
I
follow
feel
the money, like Crystal said.
Yeah, and I also feel like the medical system almost coming in and being like, something about this needs to change. Like this came out for good, and now it's causing, like it's heavily weighing down the medical system, right? Like all of these overdoses and all of the people that have ended up in the medical system, or even their own families that have suffered from that have been impacted from addiction because of this. Like I think that there could be like potentially new players coming in going, something has to change here. Like if there has been government intervention in the past, or that this has been sort of hijacked for money, things are going to have to shift.
Obviously the whole thing is the drug system has always been about money.
Yeah.
And I think what Crystal's saying is that the government has been the shadow, or the let's just call it the cabal system, was really heavily involved, because that's the question. But it does seem that it isn't as involved. But I think it's important to bring awareness to that. As you're saying, LMB, it's important that, you're saying it seems that this is not widely known, and all of these headlines is going to bring this into common awareness. And it's kind of after the fact is what I'm trying to say. It's almost like it's sort of like redundant at this point, but it's still important that people become aware of it, because that's going to create the overall, again, awakening where people are like, oh my gosh, are governments colluding to this? This has been going on for all this time, and it's been all hidden. Again, the secrecy, right? It's sort of like the massive aspect of lack of trust in our policymakers and our leaders, just like in a relationship where there's no transparency. And once the secrets start coming out, the worst thing is the fact that you've been lied to, right? That's the thing that creates, it's really hard to trust someone who's lied to you about several things. We're going through the same thing collectively around our governments and policymakers. And so, it feels like, I think Crystal is right on saying it's going to come down to following the money. And that's where we're going to see the great systemic change for the better.
Yeah.
That makes this, ultimately down the road, a cleanup operation that is going to create something that's going to benefit all of us. So.
Absolutely.
Okay, our last question we're going to is the question about Social Security. Maria, hi Maria. Please read on U.S. Social Security. Some people are not receiving their regular checks suddenly. When will they get them back? Is there something coming soon to replace them? Now, this kind of links into a couple of other upcoming or things that have been revealed in readings I've done in the last couple of weeks, where there's people's payments, their banks are suddenly not recognizing their dates and their birth date is not right in the system, and we're going through some challenges with our website payments right now where they're not suddenly recognizing our address, and all of this kind of what seems like a lot of internal glitches around getting paid, right?
Yeah.
So, and getting access to our funds. So I think we're looking at a larger, because I've heard these stories now for the last 2 weeks increasingly in my readings. So there's a phenomena happening.
Mhm.
And I think really the main question here is, you know, is this part of what we were being told over the last 2 or 3 years, where there's a transition happening and we're going on to a new system, and the other ones, there's going to be a lot of glitches as it transfers over, and we may go without payments. We may, be sort of left in the dark. And is that what that blackout that we've been hearing about is actually about? And if so, is there something coming to replace this? And is that something going to be positive for us?
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. So we got a yes in the past. We're going through the transfer. We got to wait it out.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Ooh.
yeah. I feel like there's a system change happening.
Yeah.
And it's already started.
This is definitely the shakedown of it.
Yeah, it's almost like a rolling, and I feel to some degree this is helpful for me, and I feel somewhat grateful. If I were designing a great transfer of all these financial systems, I would do it exactly like this. I would not just pull the plug on everybody's everything, because you just have like people would be just losing it, right? Like it would be really crazy and disastrous. So I would do it more like just sort of working on, like they say when you have tech outages and they're saying, well, we're working on this, but we're not going to shut everything down all at once. We're just going to work over here and close this system down for a few hours or a few days or a few weeks. And then we're going to go over here and fix this part and go over here. So that is more or less what I'm sensing, is that it's a strategic shift, tearing down the old system.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to pull just a couple more here to see like how we support ourselves through this shift. What we can be aware of and how we can.
Oh, thankful that these cards have come up.
It definitely looks like we need to be curious. We need to be honoring that this is an invitation to be like having awareness of how our resources are moved, are handled, and having more connection to that. We've kind of been babysat in that a lot. And it's like, this is actually potentially going to support us in moving into more smooth sailing and also
more sovereignty.
More
right?
sovereignty. Yeah. Like it's.
So I'm getting 5 to 7 weeks, but it could be as long as 5 to 7 months. And I feel as though we're going to need to like put on our armor and just get through this. I think there's going to be a lot of supporting through communicating with each other. Like, oh yeah, my payments were stopped for like a month, but then they came back on. And so when we're going through having our system not working well, we can be like, yeah, it's okay. This is, it's changing. And we've got 2 7s here, right? The spiritual number.
And sharing our strategies with each other, like sharing that this is like, let's all be talking about that this is happening to us. Like, hey, Wix is withholding our payments. Like for something as stupid as saying there's a mismatch in our address. Like it's There's not.
for like weeks
For
and
weeks,
weeks. Yeah.
for 5, 6 different times, 5 different phone conversations, and every time, "Just wait for the email," and then the email says, "Oh, something's out wrong." No, it's not.
Mhm.
So so
Mhm.
what are we doing with it? What ends up being the solution? Let's continue to talk about this and share this with each other because we are all on this journey together. This
Mhm.
is not something we've done wrong. This is not like us, mismanaging, but it does invite us to see how we can support each other in learning ways to manage differently and
Yeah,
better.
and what's like when we've been having conversations about this, there's like, the alarm bells, right? We're all going like, oh, something's wrong, something's wrong. And when it comes to our money and our security, those are big alarm bells. And it gets our attention, right? So Suzanne's saying, is this going to be
Mhm.
basic income? Are we going to be looking, um, yeah, ask for help? Is this going to be
Yeah,
introducing universal basic income?
right.
Um, yeah. So what I'm sensing is that just as we were saying earlier, the reliance on the systems. And we have some friends that are amazingly have been working on setting up a whole new, I don't know what it's called. It's basically a secure internet alternative system, looking at people who are setting up alternative economic systems that are operated within a smaller community, sort of regional area that you can do trading. And this is something that I'm looking into and have been super passionate about for many, many years. And I want to bring some of these experts that are, well, let's just say they're pioneers, maybe not experts, but they're learning and developing things and strategizing. Because I think what we see when we're looking at things like the social security payments is we are recognizing how dependent we are on a
Yeah,
system that has us on a leash, right? It's like dangling us, right? And at any moment it could just drop us. And we're like, okay, we need other systems. Do we need to just like run and hide in the forest and have nothing? No. But we do need to create a variety of different alternative systems so that if this rug is unstable and we're like totally dependent on it, we don't want to feel terrified and absolutely disrupted down to our root chakra core, right? We want to
mhm.
stabilize and have that's why having things like cryptocurrency. I've been saying for a long time, people are on crypto thinking they're going to make $1 million, right? Whatever dollars those are. And what I keep saying is obviously, yes, you can make some profit on crypto and then turn some of your profit into harder assets like gold and precious silver, precious metals, gold and silver. But the biggest gift with alternative currencies is that we can start utilizing them. And we've been working on setting up alternative currency
Mhm.
payments on our site. It's something we hope to have done within the next month. We've been working. It's not as easy as I would like it to be. I'd like to see this get a lot more gracious. I know Beyond Mystic has been working on it too, and it's not easy with the current payment systems that we have available to us, but we're making an effort to do that. And I think when going forward, like consider to spread your assets differently and look at different ways to start, creating strategic solutions so that we're not so state dependent. I've followed for a few years now, Nomad Capitalist, and he talks about it. He calls it nanny states. And he says, there are countries in the world that have created such a false sense of security and dependency on these systems. And then when those plugs are pulled, whether it's for a necessity because of whatever transition or crises we're going through, or if it's actually nefariously those plugs are pulled, we're so vulnerable without those securities in place. So it's not, this isn't about shaming yourself for not having done, there's no better time than now, right? Your
Mhm.
timing is your perfect timing. And knowing this information at this moment is a gem. It is giving you a gift to, and there's no one size fits all either. There's so many options that are developing. So let's get curious and let's support each other and not attack each other, right? Anything to add to that,
Well,
Krista?
yeah. Do you want to speak to what I put up there about what Susan said?
Yeah.
I mean, this is big for us.
Yeah, so I've been following Michael Tellinger for a really long time, and I think his One Small Town movement is one of the best systems that has, there's not one solution is going to save us.
Yeah.
And it's not even about saving ourselves or just surviving. This is about like thriving and building new systems. I see dozens of new systems coming.
Yes.
And I have one of them that I've channeled over the last 3 or 4 years that I'm in development with. And I'm also in development with Michael Tellinger and other programs. So this is coming. And I'm excited that you're getting curious about this. And instead of going into fear, let's whet our appetite for something much better. Like where we're going is away from the dependency on state, centralized power dominant authority, state controlled social credit systems, right? Or like that's just more of the same. Even if it starts off with the white hat kind of ethics around it, if it's centralized power dominant system, eventually it will corrupt. It's not a healthy system. It doesn't follow natural law to have one power dominant system. So getting into the spiritual energy of the diversification and honoring all these different strengths, different regions of the planet, different groups of people and their strengths, that's where we're headed.
Indeed.
Hit the thumbs up, everyone. Please like, share, and subscribe.
Thank you, Leah.
Yeah, it's so delightful as always to share with you.
Yeah.
And you got me ranting today.
Inspired by all of this and all of our conversations together, please share this video. Please put it out there, help us to grow so that, we can continue to bring in other people. And it's exciting times.
Yeah,
we're all in this together. Thank you for being here with us.
Blessings, everybody.
Blessings,
Have
everyone.
A beautiful week. And
see you next Tuesday.
Well, I won't see you, but Crystal will see you.
Blessings.
Bye for now.